Noon, it's Joyful Hermit. I have tried 3 times to do a video on St. Juliana Falconieri and regarding the 19th of June, which is the day that she died, I think 754 years ago or 84 years ago or something, 83 years ago. Anyway, she died in 1341 and was born in 1270. But I'll try it again another time for a fourth time. 2 got posted by accident. I thought I had canceled them, and I apologize. It just went on and into other things. I gave background as to why I even saw her incorrupt body by accident, quote unquote. But all of this came back to me this June 19th, which is because that is her feast day. I didn't realize it was. And then that's also an anniversary of something that happened to me mystically, but physically also, about 2 months before I was Catholic, but I was well on my way with instruction. But somehow the videos just didn't seem right. And I'm going through just a very difficult time right now. And I haven't known what it was. And it seemed like the videos weren't going to resonate with you, and nothing I do does. And it's like God has stripped me more than ever in my life. And this whole matter of love to suffer and suffer to love came back. That was from the end of July of 2003 with this big archangel who came in after these little naked adolescent demons were surrounding me as I lay on the floor with my knees up like I am now. This is my best position for my back and my lumbar. And it was in an all-night chapel, and these demons left when this angel came, and he stood there, and I know it was Saint Michael by how he was dressed and his voice, and he had this huge spear, and he ran it right down through my heart and pronounced, it's like a pronouncement, love to suffer and suffer to love. And the next day, the next 2 days, even 3 days, something occurred regarding a priest that I had really come to love and appreciate. But God had kept me from seeing. I sensed something, but God had kept me from seeing the fullness of what he was into and wrong and sick. But God showed me then. And that's what this love to suffer and suffer to love I thought was about only. But lately I've realized, no, it was like the pronouncement for my life that I was to love to suffer and suffer to love. And I'm trying to understand what that means, and I'm pretty sure I have the first part. For a long time, I kept thinking it meant, to love suffering, and I can't love suffering. It hurts too much as my own pain just continues to get worse, and more technically, temporally bad things happen. And even spiritually, it feels bad. Of course, that's from the human perspective, because God's perspective of bad isn't the same as ours as far as suffering goes. His view of suffering is not like our view. To God, suffering is more a tool, useful, a means to something beautiful, a means to truth, beauty, and goodness. Suffering is a means of love, and love is a means to suffering. They're sort of interchangeable a little bit, or one after the other, and then flows back into the other. It's an infinity. It they flow and interweave into each other. Love and suffering does, but I can't as a still human, or in the state I'm in, I realized I don't love suffering. It's painful, not just physically, but deep in the heart painful, deep in the soul painful. But I have understood it now this far. The first part, love to suffer, that it means that we have to be able to really love in order to suffer. For example, the reason I suffer so deeply for how my adult children and as little children were hurt by all of my suffering and pain, and how it altered me. They don't even know me as I was before the car accident nearly 40 years ago. They don't remember me. And pain and suffering has altered me. It's made me love much more deeply. Love God and love others. Love the created world far more than I ever did. Love even my ex-husband. And I loved him very much then. I was willing to remain married, but it had changed. I was on to him. I knew that he was a habitual liar, a cheater, very egotistical. I had learned that, especially when he admitted things that I had sensed or known but shoved down into my subconscious because it was too painful for me to face all the different women he cheated with. And it was just too much. And the same with a lot. So I do remain traumatized. I know that. And when the pain is high and I'm exhausted, more exhausted, I just go back into if I'm at the dog park, that's the only place I see people. Or tried to say something to the pain doctor the other day regarding how I understand now how my children were damaged by my suffering and how I was as a single parent, and all the research out now on how it affects children and affects them when they're adults, on through adulthood, to be reared by a disabled parent. And if it's a single disabled parent, it's worse. And if it's the mother who rears them and she is disabled, it is even far, far worse if it's chronic pain or whatever it is. And then I've noticed families where there's two parents intact, stay together, and one is disabled. The adult children are faring far better. They're close, they visit back and forth, they call, they are healthy. They're able to. It's not that the children of the single parent who was suffering and the children took care of that parent and took care of themselves when they needed to be taken care of by a parent. It's not that they don't love or that they're unhealthy or psychologically warped. It's that they love and they just can't take it anymore. They lived with that suffering. They took care of the parent who was suffering. They took care of themselves. They worked hard. They lived in austere circumstances in many ways, emotionally especially, but mentally with fear. What would happen if the parent died? Any of those pain sieges were so bad. At times I thought I was going to die. And then what for them? Well, they would have to go live with their dad. They didn't want to. They didn't even want to visit him. Not till he married and the woman had 3 children about their ages. Then it was better for them. They had allies. All the children could be for each other and protect each other against unfortunately, my ex-husband, but they've blocked a lot of that out now. They're adults, and he is their father. He was successful, so that leaves some confusion. How can someone who was that successful in a career and has that kind of money and seems so normal and fun? Oh, yes, he was the life of the party kind of person. Still is, no doubt. But the thing is that they had to move on in their lives. They can't take my increasing pain, and it's not just the physical pain, it's all the bad things that happen. The hard things, like my pain doctor now. He's been acting differently the last couple of appointments, and it's not good. And he's not medicating me very well or why, which makes sense, not even to the pharmacist. The pharmacist was concerned and said, well, you should be on a fentanyl patch. Could be a low dose, but consistent. And then something for breakthrough pain. But instead, my pain doctor has reverted to meds that are just instant. They're not the extended relief. So every 4 to 5 hours, I have maybe an 3-hour window of the pain being less, but he lowered the dose. Even though I told him how my knee hurts all the time, my shoulder's injured. It's been 5 weeks now with my shoulder. And my gut, I still have gut attacks. And he got on me about that and disagreed and said I'm misdiagnosing myself. And then he proposed all these extreme stomach ailments. No, I don't have anything like that. I have arachnoiditis. But the pain doctor, it's like an ego thing anymore with him. It's like he wants to be the right one. And so he's like punishing me subconsciously but passively, passive aggressive, by changing my pain meds and not letting me have extended release, so that every 3 to 4 hours I'm either dealing with the pain getting worse again or take the pain medication and it slightly gets better. And then at hour 5, I have to take another pill, and it's not enough. He lowered the dose. So it's, and then I go through that cycle. So I'm like a pain yo-yo now. Last night, I didn't sleep well because every 3 hours, or I had 3-hour window of less pain. And so that, just that he would do that. We had a wonderful relationship. We were collegial and would work together on handling the pain and figuring out. But he somehow has gotten resentful or miffed at me. And I notice he's had a major staff turnover. And there's only one person who remains that hasn't been there that long. So I don't know what's happened. And he's a unique person, but I'm unique. I mean, it was sort of like, I tried to tell him then about how I understand my children, because he was down on my children. And it's easy to be that way and to think that way. Like, well, they ought to visit, they ought to help me more, they ought to call and not do this. But I understand now they cannot. It's not psychologically feasible. They can't they love me, and they wanted a better life for me. They can't take this pain in their lives anymore. They had to move on with their lives, with their problems, their sufferings, their husbands. The one had a divorce with that suffering, with their children, with their high-pressured careers, with handling their financials in their homes, finances in their homes, their vehicles. They have all that they have to do. And their friendships, their social lives, they can no longer, to see me, to hear me, to think about me, triggers them into all the pain that they lived with and grew up with and took care of. And as adults, they realize how awful it was, how inappropriate and unfair that little children were taking care of the mother when they needed to be taken care of. And other people, bless their hearts, would tell them, oh, you're doing such a good job now. Take care of your mother. Take care of your mother. Take care of your little brother, which they did. The girls were 5 and 7 years older than him. He was just a baby at the accident. So I was trying to tell the pain doctor that. But how hard it's been, how shocking that I've realized how I hurt them, not intending to, but my pain did, my suffering, and my suffering altered me. When I'm in bad pain, I'm even worse. I am not even just not myself, but especially when I was young and dealing with so many losses of my life in an adult way that they couldn't begin to understand. But loss of my husband, loss of career, the pressure of the finances. I went without disability for a year, had to battle to get it. It was terrible. Through another one of those weird things. This young woman at the California State Teachers Retirement in Sacramento decided, well, her husband had back surgery and he was back to work in 6 weeks. Therefore, she wasn't going to grant me my disability. When my surgeon and family doctor, they'd all declared me permanently disabled. I would have these terrible pain seizures. I don't know from day to day if I'm going to be able to get up or not. And now, of course, it's much worse. But back then, before this pain pump, I had terrible spinal headache pain seizures. But she had the power to do that. I wasn't going to get my disability. And my 3 children, I had no money. I was out. And what was I going to do? And the husband was messing around with the child support, the ex-husband. And I suspect he had contacted her or them, the state teachers retirement. He was a principal then in another district because he contacted my lawyers and caused me to get very little in an accident settlement. He got a hold of the name of the boys' lawyers, the kid who hit us, and said that he was going to testify against me. Contacted my lawyers and said that's what he was going to do. And it just took anything out of my case because it was going to be my word against his and my records. But he was going to claim that I wasn't injured in the accident, that it must have been something else that did it. So, and I had taken ballet trying to strengthen my back. So they were going to try to say that I hurt it in ballet, taking ballet lessons with a group of women. But, so I just have a lot of bad stuff happen. And one of the viewers suggested that it is, perhaps I've been cursed. Well, I haven't shared with you the story. Not a story, but the reality. But to tell it, it seems like a Stephen King short story or something, where I was held against my will by this demoniac woman. And I escaped by the grace of God, and there's a couple of miracles involved in it. Well, about 3 of them, actually. 3 miracles involved in it. But, and I will tell that sometime. It's sort of horrifying. It's another trauma. But it's just one thing after another. But so, yes, I thought she had cursed me. And this priest who was part of the situation, sort of a miraculous situation, and actually it was in a way through him that my life was saved, but that I was able to escape. But he assured me, he was in Vienna, Austria, and he assured me that I wasn't cursed, that I was okay. But you still wonder with all this stuff that goes on. I thought my husband has probably cursed me. The neighbor lady did try to curse me, putting crystals, put a voodoo head in the yard. I'm sure she did. But then, when I prayed the other day, asking God to take away any and all curses that have ever been placed on me. And I heard this voice say within me, but you are a victim soul. And I thought, well, yes, but it's hard to have faith. I'm human. I'm not some holy person. God has given me some unusual experiences. He created me a mystic. I was born this way, but I didn't understand it. I still don't really, because I'm not holy. I'm otherwise ordinary sinner with lots of faults. I wasn't in many ways a good mother. I was under so much stress. My son, as an adult, a few years ago, told me how one time I really, really scared him. But he didn't understand, and I didn't want to tell him then. His dad had called. He was about 5 at the time. And his dad had called and threatened me, for one thing, again, verbally. Then said he was going to take the children away legally. And he did try to get the boy. The boy was just little then. Tried to get full custody of him. But he also, said that no way would I ever be able to leave California with the children, because we were going to court for that. I had to go to court. I'd asked him, explained why. I didn't say because he constantly harassed us, terrorized us, and did bad things to 2 of the children, and including the boy finally, where they refused to go visit him anymore after that Christmas. But this was in the fall, and we'd sold the house, moved to an apartment, because I needed to do that so that we'd be ready. We were getting ready to go to court. And I told the Lord I would do it as an act of faith, because God gave me repeated dreams for a year that I was to take the children and move them back to my hometown in the Midwest. And that took faith. But the house, I listed the house, it sold the first day for asking price minus 500. And it was in September, and the markets had dropped in California right then. And we'd asked a good price. It was amazing. The realtor said she couldn't believe it. Someone just bought it. Didn't dicker. I didn't have a front yard. We had planted flowers out there just to give a lift to the children and something fun. We went out, dug it up, and planted flower seeds. So it was a bizarre front yard, to say the least. And so they said they did 500 less for the front yard. Otherwise, it would have been asking price. But that angered the ex-husband. And he called and threatened me, threatened my life, said he was going to take the children, and then, did his usual cursing at me and things like that. And it upset me, and that we'd never get out of state. Ever. He said, not ever. That I wouldn't be alive to take them. And, of course, you can't. What can you do with anything like that? It wasn't tape recorded. It would be my word against his. He always wanted everything, because he was this great principal, then of a very prestigious school district in Orange County. And he was a liar and a good talker. He was a sociopath, so he could come off very well. He fooled me. for years. So, and I married him, I thought, wow, what a great man, great, wonderful person. Lots of fun, charming, intelligent, hardworking. So, yeah, and reduced me, but I still would have remained married just to keep the children intact, despite his cheating on me. Multiple women sometimes cheated on the woman and the wife. But I had made this thought in my mind: if he ever hurt any of the children, well, he did cross that line with the oldest daughter in a punishment, and scared her and scared me. And so that was when I thought, well, if he leaves again, because he would keep leaving and coming back, or saying he needed to go, find himself, go to a hotel for the weekend. And it was my mother that said, oh, for pity's sakes, he's with a woman. Sure enough, he was. I'm just I couldn't take it in at the conscious level. It was too horrible. I loved him. And we'd just gotten into a very good position. I was finishing my doctorate. The children were in excellent schools. But I was injured. And that was sort of the tipping point, or the excuse he had then to get out. But, and it was what God needed to use, though, to change my life, to get me freed, so God could have me for himself. But anyway, that's why I slammed the refrigerator door like 6 or 7 times, just repeatedly. And my son, I had been getting dinner. Of course, my pain was sky high. It was after I was just permanently disabled. And the only reason that I could get a lawyer then and go to court was that I did get this little small settlement from the accident. It was worth so much more. But I had gotten a call from an intern who told me what the ex-husband was doing and how my own lawyers were selling me down the river, as he put it. And he says, you need to get another lawyer who will really fight for you, because they don't want to fight. They're tired of your ex-husband because he's so hard to deal with. And he said they don't want to go to court with it, because they only get 7% more. They get 33% if you'll settle out of court. And they're not going to fight for you in court, because they just want you to settle. And they want to be done with it, because now the case isn't going to be very worth much, because of your ex-husband has determined to testify against you and will say these things, which will make the lawyers get less, because they won't get as much. He told me how much it was worth. It was a lot. Well, yes, my whole career was gone. My life was gone. I was done. And I called to try to get another lawyer. No one would take it, because they would have to split, or, do whatever percentage of time. The other lawyers had quite a bit of time in it already. So no one would take it, so I had to just settle. But I had money, at least, for a lawyer. So, and then I used the rest of it to help the kids with their college expenses and upkeep, because the support was so low and didn't always come in. So, yeah, so I was frustrated, but that really my son said that really scared him. He remembered that. But he didn't know why I was so upset. And that was the way I could vent it. I couldn't scream. I knew that would be upsetting. It was physical to slam that refrigerator door. So that was something. But you see how some of you might think, well, that wasn't that much. But to him it was, because I was not like that. But he didn't know what my former husband, who I'd married and had the one child in miscarriage. I had 4 pregnancies. But how it was still painful to think that he could be this way to us, and that he would terrorize us so much and make our lives so miserable that we all wanted to leave. The kids were desperate to leave. But I think as adults, they think back and think, well, we would have been better off had we stayed there, maybe, So it just gets tricky how things work out. But I've been this situation with, it's like I'm already dead. And my children, and I know that they need to have their lives away from me. And I wanted to call the eldest one or text her, and I thought, no, don't. Don't remind her. I have to protect them from me, from memory of me, and from how I'm worse. I'm definitely worse, even in the last year. So, because this morning I thought, do I need to move back there to the Midwest? Find a different pain doctor, because this isn't good to have this going on with this pain doctor now. I had counted on him. I trusted him. You have to have confidence in the person. But I talked it over with the pharmacist. This doesn't make sense. Putting me on not the extended, not someone in chronic pain should be on extended with something for breakthrough, not this yo-yoing every 5 hours. Well, sooner than that, because the pain builds up before it starts the medicine starts wearing down. And in that time, I have a good hour of it wearing down. I have a good half hour of it, easing off once I take the medication. So it's hell in a way, physical hell for me last night, waking up several times and dealing with it, and waiting for it to help a little bit. It's still not enough. So, but this other video I was going to do of St. Juliana Falconieri has a lot of meaning to it. So I'll try it again. But I just wanted to say, because something else has come to me now. Not only this, it's a suffer to love and love to suffer. No, love to suffer, suffer to love. The whole thing, that it is not that we are going to love suffering, love hurting, love agony, love pain. No, that's not human. That's not, and we are human. God has us human. Even mentally and spiritually, I don't love this state I've been in for a while now. It's darkness and it's sadness and it's as if I'm already dead and there's nothing left in life that motivates me anymore. I don't enjoy the manual labor whatsoever. I don't do it. I'm fatigued. I'm worn out. And the contemplation doesn't come. Everything's altered. It's like I'm already dead. But then I did realize it's the love of God and the love of what you're to be suffering for. To whom you're suffering, for whom you're suffering, for what you're suffering. That kind of love, if you have that kind of love, like the love I have for my children, adults as they are, the love I have for them allows me to really suffer this, and to suffer for them and what they suffered and what they still suffer. the one daughter that's nearby, when she asked me to lunch last Friday with her significant other, nice man, and had been a friend prior, and her son, they all were there. But it was strange. It was hard on me, very hard, because I saw how hard it was for her to be around me. And definitely, if I tried to say anything, I was going to share with her my MRI results that I got. She, oh, no, 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 changed the subject right away. Anything that came up, she did notice my shoulders. She says, oh, they look all tense and up high and bony. I said, well, I have trouble gaining weight now, all this pain, but, and probably inability to sleep and stuff, whatever it is. Pain eats away the pounds. If I could sell it, I'd be a billionaire. If I could sell this pain to people who want to lose weight. But I said, well, I've injured my shoulder. Oh, change the subject. And she talked the whole time, sort of silly stuff. And her friend, her man friend, well, they're more than friends. He's a very lovely person. I have hopes for them. that I'm just, if nothing else, I'm happy that she has a lovely person, positive, loving, personable, talkative, kind, caring, to spend time with, to be with, compared to what she had for 20 years. So I'm very, very thankful. But he says, well, has this thing that she just is convinced that if someone has a body part that has pain in it, it should be amputated or removed. And she said, yes, and I thought that's weird. That's abnormal. That's not, I mentioned it to Dr. H, and he says, well, you can't get your backbone removed. It would kill you. No one would be able to amputate that. Wouldn't be allowed. Would be murder. But I think subconsciously, it was sincere to alleviate suffering. He says, oh yes, for the last couple or 3 days, she's been thinking on this and talking about how anyone has pain, that part should be amputated. So my grandson brought up some sort of, thought it was a joke or something about, well, how many fingers would you be willing to lose for how much money? And if you had a finger that hurt or something, or your whole hand, or what if you just could get paid for it? With how many fingers would you be willing to have cut off? And to change the subject got everyone laughing in a funny way, but some people probably would take the money and do that. Maybe they do out in the world. I don't know, but I know they do that for torture. The mafia and kidnappers will, take off a finger and send it for ransom, to proof of life, I guess, or proof that they mean it, that they're going to kill the person if they don't get the money. But I realized that probably just thinking ahead of having this lunch, seeing me, hadn't seen her in quite a while, or to talk with, even to talk. And they did have things stacked up right after, came a little late. So we had a little under an hour together is all. And just one of those things that's what made me realize, woke me up. I saw it was all the body reactions and everything of everyone, the subtle movements, what was spoken, what was said, the fact that I couldn't say anything. Well, that's because I've become pain and pain has become me. And it was hard then with my pain doctor, who I've been with for 5.5 years. It's been wonderful. But the last couple of times, and this last time, it just was not good. And it was very hard, another painful thing, another loss. So, and I don't have anyone else. You're very vulnerable when you're a pain patient. And when the medication that you need is an opioid in our climate now of anti-opioid, even if you have severe pain, and that's the medication that will help take the pain down a little bit. So it's just one of those things that I have to just keep going. But today then, I was thinking about, well, it came to mind, John of the Cross did. Because I realize I need some help. I need guidance. And like I say, this one viewer thought maybe I've been cursed. But then when I mentioned, that I'm a victim soul, when I heard that voice say that, and it takes faith to discern and to trust something like that. But I realize that it does take faith, but I have to try to understand that if I truly am a victim soul, then it starts to make a little more sense. But today, to have John of the Cross come to mind. So I thought, I don't have my spiritual dad to help me anymore, to guide me or help explain things to me. And I also thought about John of the Cross for that. I thought he would be able to help me with all these things I'm going through with this, because I kept starting to think and say, and I think I left it in a comment, maybe to Coin, I did, that I think I'm in some kind of a dark night. There's a dark night of the senses, and then I said a dark night of the soul. It's actually called dark night of the spirit. There's a dark night of the senses and a dark night of the spirit. And the last couple of days I've been thinking, I think I'm in one of these dark nights that John of the Cross wrote about. And today the thought came stronger, that I'm in a dark night of the senses and a dark night of the spirit, maybe both, I wasn't sure. So this afternoon I got out my book, and this book had been on my mind because another viewer, trying to think who it was, I think it's Angela, she's becoming Catholic, and she asked me what books of any that I would recommend for her as a new Catholic, becoming a new Catholic, or just in the spiritual life in general. This is one, The Collected Works of St. John of the Cross, edited by Kieran Kavanaugh. Kieran Kavanaugh, spelled with a K, Kavanaugh. He's a Cistercian, Carmelite, Order of Carmelite Discalcid, OCD. So, and that's the sketch that John of the Cross drew. He was spiritually in an elevated position, looking down upon the crucifix like that, and drew that sketch, which is very unique, and it's very famous now, but he actually drew it. So, but he writes, well, anyway, I had this bookmark here, this little bookmark. I got it off my shelf. I hadn't read it since it was boxed up in 2012. So, in fact, it was probably February of 2012 before I moved to the island, and here I was. Right at the page, I'd read this much so far, and I have little pencil underlinings. This I read over time, these 374 pages. And my little marker was right at this spot where he starts explaining the dark night of the senses And then after that, as I read through that little section, he comes to the dark night of the spirit. And this is answering my dilemma. So I know the Holy Spirit is helping me, as is John of the Cross. And I hope helping you all by my bringing this up. But you can see how life can be, and it's just not my life. I just give mine as an example of all these trials that after a while become uncanny, becomes too much. And for the person who also then is suffering and progressing in suffering, and the sufferings become deeper and more profound and more difficult to bear. Sufferings of all types. Coin, a viewer, had left in his comment, even people struggling financially. A longtime friend of his who got her purse snatched. And she's very poor, worked 2 jobs. She's in her 60s now, or maybe 60, and has been in poverty all her life, was born into poverty. And how that's a suffering. There's all kinds of sufferings in the world. And then some people like us, you guys and me, who are very sensitive and empathic, have a lot of empathy. We suffer, so we understand and feel for people who suffer. So we take on their sufferings also. We feel them, we pray for them, we love them. Love to suffer. The more we are able to love, the more we love suffering, and we can love suffering, or we can also suffer. The more we have a capacity to love, the more we can suffer and take on. That's how we learn from Jesus. His love, because he's God. He's Son of God, the God-man. So he has all this incredible love for all the souls created and for the earth and for the creatures. So Jesus suffered and died. And he suffered before the crucifixion. He suffered all his human life. How difficult to be in human form when you are God, when you are pure love, and living in a very imperfect world, and being and suffering, losing your life in the world that you created to be beautiful, with beautiful souls you created, who, though through free will and through sin, become pretty ugly at times. So it's a suffering. But God loves us so much that he suffers it. He loves to suffer. So that's how I came to understand love to suffer. I haven't quite gotten through the suffer to love yet, but love to suffer. So these dark nights, the dark night of the senses, as I was reading through, really started to make sense to me that this is my problem right now. That this is what I'm going through. And I've gone through dark night of the senses before, where things didn't mean much to me. I could detach more easily to things. But this time it's the strongest I've ever experienced it. Very deeply I'm experiencing this purgation, or death to self, death to my senses, death to what I used to enjoy, death to my spiritual life even. I've mentioned in these videos how tired I am, how worn out, that I don't have the mental energy to read and remember much. I don't have the energy to put into, say, reading the divine office throughout the day. I'm tired, and it doesn't have the grip on me that it used to. It's my mind doesn't absorb it. It's effort, a lot of effort to even try to do. I can do simpler things like the daily scriptures, mass readings. I can read those and pray. I can pray, but not the deeper kind of prayer I used to pray, of where I could really use my mind. My mind is tired, it's worn out. It feels that way anyway. And the more I was reading in this dark night of the soul, the dark night of the sense part, the senses, our inner senses, our bodily senses, our mental senses and all, is that I'm in this dark night at a more profound and deeper level of the dark night of senses than ever before. And it says here, I'm going to find his I can find it here. Sort of a definition of contemplation. To find it. See if I can find it, and if not, I'll write it down for another video. But this is very good. It's, if you get this book, start on page 3. Well, read the whole thing. But if you feel that you are in one of these dark nights of the senses and or of the spirit, get this book, or you can probably download it online or get it on Kindle. Chapter 9, pages 377 onward. And then at page 383, I think it's 383, double check here. Oh, wait. I think it, no, starting at chapter 13, page 389, it explains the dark night. No, I want to find dark night of the spirit. I'm so sorry. Oh, it's where I have this other bookmark. Dang. Oh. Well, you'll find it. Dark Night of... Book 2. 395. The beginning of the treatise on the dark night of the spirit. The dark night of the spirit is far worse, far more intense than the dark night of the senses even. And that's what I'm suspecting, that God is taking me into the dark night of the spirit, where it's even more deep and more thorough of a dying to self. That's a short way of putting it. Of a real death to self, and a death, all of the consolations of life are gone. And that's how I have felt. I never really got attached to the DOGSs as far as, I mean, I love them. I love them enough to suffer my pained body, tired body, to take them to the dog park at night. I get up, take them out, feed them. But I don't have that kind of attachment to them that, would make it very hard if I were going to pass on, or if I, if it got to the point where their lives were totally miserable. And sometimes I think it's at that point now where, I know they'd have so much more fun with an active couple or person or children around. They need to be together. I think that would be very horrible for them to be separated now, because they're attached to each other. And they are attached to me, but that would quickly leave with just a day or two of fun. and running a backyard and children playing with them, or adults able to take them for long walks. My knee's too bad. I don't have energy. I have no desires for much of anything. I'm so tired. My pain isn't under control adequately. I've lost any kind of interest in doing the manual labor because the sweetness of contemplative prayer isn't there now. It's stripped. Dark night of the senses, upsized or whatever they call it, supersized. I know that I've been having that. Now I do, since I've reviewed this. I was wondering if I was depressed. I thought, should I be asking for antidepressants? But that never seemed to resonate with the Holy Spirit of, that because I'm not, I'm not attempting anything. It's not that I don't want to go when it's not my time, depart earth. It's not that. So this other then, since John of the Cross came in the last couple of days, and then the dark night of the soul, and then today I thought, get out this book. And then when somebody else, Angela had asked what books do I recommend, and this was one of them. So, and then finding my little tag where I left off, right here, at this section, which is saying basically the same thing. If I have the faith to believe it. And that was part of one of my videos that I took down. It included some of this, talking of some of this, that I don't know if I really can believe that I'm really, really a victim soul, and that all of these things, these deaths of sorts, losses, and odd but very negative things happening are from being a victim soul. I don't think they're from being cursed, because I think God would have answered my prayer. I asked him to take away any curses. So, and he wouldn't have said, but you are a victim soul. But I think part of this is that also God has me in these dark nights. Dark night of the senses. And you get these, and he repeats them. On rare occasions, somebody will have a dark night of the senses, and then he'll take them into a dark night of the spirit, and you'll be in union with God then. That's rare. Other times, you'll have a certain level of dark night of the senses, and you'll get through that. And then you'll have consolations. You will be at another level spiritually. But then he takes it through you again, deeper and more difficult, more strenuous, more thorough stripping of the senses and of consolations. And then you come out and you have a richer spiritual life then. And he does it in little portions, morsels, sections, phases. And then sometimes he doesn't take the person into the dark night of the spirit. Some people, God feels they're not ready for it, or they won't be in their life. They don't need to be. It's not a must do. It'll happen then in the next, when we progress on the other side. He'll continue us on then to come to union with him. But it's a possibility. I don't know yet for me if he's going to take me into the dark night of the spirit. where it's even worse, or if that's what I've been experiencing now. I'm not sure. I don't have anyone to tell me. So that's what he's deceased, my spiritual dog. So that's why I have this. We have John of the Cross to help us. So I'm going to ask, I've been asking him this afternoon. I said a little prayer not long ago to please help me. I did find this definition. Did I just lose it again? This definition of, here it is. I thought I'd lose it again. Anyway, I don't even know. It's just hard to believe at times that, well, it's when faith even leaves us, when it feels like faith has left us, that we can be in a dark night of the senses and a dark and at a very extreme level then, a dark night of the spirit. And so it's might not be so easy to even know if we are or not. And I suppose in a way it doesn't matter as long as we don't mistake it for something else. But I guess it's okay. Clear out if you're cursed. Understand if you're a victim soul. But these other things that I'm going through spiritually, the death and all, that isn't just from being a victim soul. The bad stuff that happens from my perspective and most people's perspective, the negatives that happen, the losses, the hardships, the sufferings, the trials, all of that is victim soul. But you have all of that also when you're being purged of your senses, of the temporal senses and of your spiritual senses. So when you go through a dark night of the sense, that's at two levels also. That's your outer, the externals, and the interior. And then when it's a dark night of the spirit, it's just very, very intense, deep, and of a spiritual nature, at the spiritual level. And it gets even hard to describe. That's why having access to some of this would be good. Well, I was hoping I could find this definition. It was pretty simple, but with my mind, even my memory, he talks about how you even lose memory. I have memory loss, and it's not. I always blamed it on the pain, but it might be this other, because it's not a dementia type of memory loss. But the other thing I am doing is that makes me wonder about this dark night of the senses, even for me, where I have some doubts. I just don't know. It makes sense for me, but it's the fact that I distract myself. For me, he talks about if you're doing your devotions, you just keep doing them even though there's no fruit from them. You're forcing yourself. You're just going through the motions. But he says that there's good to be gained in the repetition, in the forcing yourself, in the perseverance of it. And I've had that before in a dark night of the senses, where I would keep up with my spiritual routine. But now I am just so exhausted that I don't. I have to, this last week, ever since a week ago Friday, I've been so depleted, so dead, that it is more a matter of just whatever can take my mind away, so that I'm not even aware of my body, of the pain, and not just the physical pain, the pain of the whole 9 yards, the whole ball of wax, everything. The pain of my temporal existence, of my life, of the situations, of my experiences, of memories, everything. It's just like I'm being removed from it all when something else can take me away from it. And it's practically as if I dread or can't tolerate just being still and aware, feeling it all, feeling my body, knowing my predicaments, remembering things, feeling the anguish and the pain, feeling the regret and the remorse, being penitent, the sorrow of not just my children that I've hurt, but of anyone, any of my sins, my mistakes that I didn't intend at all, that in a way wouldn't even be a sin, but they were just things that I wished I had done better, or hadn't said something that I said that maybe it came out wrong, or maybe it in my mind could have hurt someone, which could be a sin, or maybe not. Maybe the other person didn't think about it, didn't even remember maybe. But that I'm thinking back or remembering little things, or choices. I thought of choices. 5.5 years ago, I could have gotten a place back in the Midwest near the other daughter, but I didn't have a pain doctor. And doctors back there said, don't come back here because you need to have opioids, and we doctors were not allowed to give them out to anyone, in regular practices. And I'd already tried pain doctors before I even left back there, and they wouldn't give me anything, but I didn't have the diagnosis yet. But when I was getting a place to live, I didn't still have the diagnosis. That happened about 2 months after I moved in here, or close to 3 months. I had the diagnosis when I found out I needed this major spine surgery. Neurosurgeons back there didn't discover the arachnoiditis. It takes someone who knows what they're looking for because it's rare. So I keep thinking then, well, if I had made other choices, maybe all these things wouldn't have happened. Maybe I wouldn't have been in this predicament. I would have gotten this one little place that seriously only needed was some painting. Maybe a new shower tiled or something. Very minor compared to the work I've done here. And would have been at least seen the granddaughters. They don't remember me with pain. So, the times I'd visit, they would, but they hardly remember me. But that's over because of the parent situation. There's no, I'm not visiting there. I've asked and asked, but no, it's been over 4 years since I've seen them. The one's going to college in a year. So I was desperately thinking, well, just sell this as is and get back there. See how it goes, try to make up for it. Then I went into this mode of thinking that if I'd never heard of victim souls, maybe I wouldn't be one. You get sort of twisted, and I don't think it's the devil putting that in my mind. It's myself, just unsure, being human, and having a hard time, in a way, accepting the suffering involved in being a victim soul, and then having the faith to really believe that it does have purpose and that God can utilize it. We go through phases of, this is a dark night phase. We can go through some questioning. And usually God brings us through with increased faith. But I don't know. When you're in it, you don't know. It feels like you're never going to get through it. But reading this is really resonating with me. That this is the issue. This is the situation. And I don't know yet, though, if this is going to be a dark night of the spirit. I'm going to read about that and see. And I do think it's good for anyone to read this. And I think it's good to read from the beginning. It tells about his life, and it builds you up so that you better grasp. I have so many things underlined with pencils and little stars all through here so that I can go back. I started reading this years ago, that I can go back and look at the check marks and just read those sentences. See, I didn't do that to find the definition back here because I just started where I'd left off. Back in about maybe 2011 was the last time I read in here. So I might have gotten it out once or twice for reference, but to look back on some things. But it's important to know so that when you get into these situations, you can discern what's wrong with you. And also to be aware of what's a potential. And then you can ask for it. You can ask God, please progress me. And God knows whether we're capable of enduring the dark night of the spirit. I don't know if that's what he has in mind for me. Mind with a capital M, God's mind. I don't know if I am material for it, because you have to be strong. And I don't perceive myself at this point as strong at all. I feel already as if I'm dead. And it's not just the adult children. I see the good in that. They won't grieve as much when I do die, and I won't have a hard time detaching from them then either, because I know that they need to live their lives and not be burdened and traumatized by memories of all the suffering, or the recognition that when they have their lives now with their families, they can compare and say and see it. Oh my goodness, our lives were very unfortunate and different and traumatizing for us and hard. And I'm sure I didn't have patience that I needed. The pain sets me on edge. Even now, with just being alone, I have to be alone. I couldn't take the motion and the conversation or anything. God knew I needed to be a hermit for what was ahead of me. And it's even hard for me to accept that sometimes. At times I think, well, is there something? Could I try again to fit in with the world and to have some friends? And then I realize, no, that my love, my heart, is the cross, is Christ. When I would be before anytime I would go into a church or be before the tabernacle, I would say, my love, my only love, the cross, and only the cross. That came to me one time, back in about 2003, that I was to say that was pleasing to Jesus. I started saying it before the crucifix. And at home, I would say it, even with my crucifix here on me. My love, my only love. The cross, and only the cross. And meant it and mean it. So, no, I couldn't, but the thought comes anyway. And it's not a temptation thought. I think it's just a human, natural thing. And when the going gets rough, of course, it's sort of a eject button kind of thing. Could I eject from all this? And would have my life been better had I moved back there instead of finding a place here? Because it wasn't easy finding a place there, and I finally just got this because I was running out of time where I was staying, and the prices kept going up so much. I liked the view. I did like the view. I thought, well, that'll be good, and I thought easy to renovate it, but I didn't know I was going to have 5 surgeries in 3.5 years, and one a big one, and 3 of them failed, and the 4th one I had trouble coming out of the anesthetic. So yeah, it's it's hard not to think of what ifs, and then to even wonder. Well, I know though from reading this today that definitely I've been in and am still in a dark night of the senses, and a tougher one than ever before. This is the toughest thing I've been through yet, spiritually, of darkness. And while it feels like God isn't around, I'm experienced enough in having these dark nights of the senses in the past that I know He is. So I'm not at that point of thinking God has abandoned me, where is He, and any of that. No, I'm not experiencing that. But it's very, very difficult. It doesn't feel as difficult right now after John of the Cross helped me. And so he's my spiritual director right now. And I've asked Padre Pio to forgive me. Haven't heard from him. But doesn't mean that's all up to God, and up to Padre Pio too. God gives free will, so to our souls. So we'll just see, but I understand a little more why I have absolutely no interest in anything temporal. But I'm not depressed. At least I have that solved. Because I did think, adding on some kind of antidepressant chemicals in my body, who knows what that would do, or how would it affect other aspects of my bad blood that I've got, my blood that has precursors of multiple myeloma blood cancers, 2 different kinds, they say. Or also that I don't have confidence in my pain doctor to even get me on a correct one, because of how he's being a little bit ridiculous on my pain meds, not putting me on extended release. That's just sort of common sense. I can figure that out, and I asked him about it, but he didn't answer. And I have to be very careful because I know he's not pleased with me right now, hasn't been. And that's a stress, that's a struggle, that's a loss, because it's not easy getting pain meds, even if you have arachnoiditis. Or this other place that I'd been to a year ago, they're into a lot of injections. And he was insistent. My pain doctor set me up with them. It's another pain clinic, because they did this very dangerous and intricate neck injection that required going in, and with a wire or a probe or something first. And I had told my pain doctor, No, that's not good. You're not to have any injections with arachnoiditis because it will make the arachnoiditis worse or give you another bizarre symptom that you'll have for life then. It's not just temporary, it'll be permanent. Like with when they did my pump and they put the tube in. Or when he did an injection in my lumbar. When I said, please don't. This was before my spine surgery 5 years ago. And my daughter had to come at 10 at night, get me to the ER, convince the doctor I was legit and that I needed very strong medication to knock me out because she lived with it. And she got home at maybe 1 or 2 in the morning. I think 2 in the morning or something. Not good. They're the ones that have had to deal with it too much. It gets too traumatic, and the surgery was hard on her when she couldn't find me and knew something had gone wrong, and sure enough it had. I wasn't breathing. They couldn't keep me breathing after the spine surgery 5 years ago. They had her come into the ICU and keep trying to keep me awake or to breathe. And then my tube came out and splattered fluid on her. My drain tube from my spine. And that horrified her, really traumatized her. She's has become very squeamish about things. So maybe I've already said this. I don't know. I say these videos and then don't post them because I don't think they're any good. And who knows what I'm repeating, but I'll stop now. If you want a good book on the life of John of the Cross, this is the best. Also, Dr. Wilhelmsen, the leading expert on John of the Cross. It's by Crisógono de Jesus, a Hispanic. He is a Carmelite priest, and he wrote this. You can probably get it used on Amazon, maybe a new edition even. Might be reprinted. This is just the book jacket of mine. I tend to, to keep my collection nice, just put other book jackets on, like sack paper or something as the book jacket, and then I save these separately for when I sell my collection. Then it will not be all beat up or faded and stuff. So just a tip for your pricey and not necessarily always pricey, but your very special old books or hard to find books, or the hardbacks that you get used. So, all right, God bless His real presence in us, and hope there's something at all in this worthwhile for you, even if it's to get this collected works of John of the Cross. Have it on hand. Learn from it. It will prepare you as your spiritual life progresses. You'll be able to go to it as reference also.